Let's learn in this video how to migrate from deprecated resource types in Terraform. Terraform evolves with each new version. We have new resource types, new features, and we might also have some deprecated resource types. So we need to update our Terraform configuration files and also to update the Terraform state file. Let's learn in this video how to do that. So we'll take as an example the new resource types related to the Azure App Service and the Azure App Service plan. One of these deprecated resources are the App Service and the App Service plan. We can see a warning when we deploy the old resource or the deprecated resource from within the Terraform console. And of course, that deprecation is also documented within the Terraform documentation, where we can see here the example for the Azure App Service that should be migrated to Azure RM Linux Web App or Azure RM Windows Web App. For this demo, I'll be using this GitHub repository where I have the Terraform configuration files and the commands that I need to run in order to migrate my deprecated Terraform resources. So mainly we'll be going through three different steps. First step is to remove the deprecated resources from the Terraform state file. Then the second step would be to update the Terraform configuration file. And the third one would be to import the new resources into the state file. So we'll take as an example here the migration from Azure App Service resource into Azure Linux Web App and from App Service, Azure App Service plan into Azure RM Service plan. So all the commands that I'll be running from here, and we will have actually lots of commands, are documented on this README file right here. I'll switch back to VS Code where I have downloaded that GitHub repository on my local machine, and from here I have actually two files, the deprecated.tf file and the new.tf file. For the deprecated file, this is the one using the deprecated resources. The two deprecated resources we have seen earlier, those were deployed into my cloud provider that it created a resource group with an app service plan and an app service resource from within Azure Cloud. Now I want to migrate my Terraform configuration and my Terraform state to use the new resource types, which are the Azure Service Plan and the Azure RM Linux Web App. Let's take a look at the Terraform TF state file, where here in the resources we have the three resources created by the Terraform configuration, which are the resource group and then the App Service Plan and then the App Service itself. Now we want to migrate these resources to use the new resource types. First thing I'm going to do here is to go to the new.tf file that contains the new resources, and then I'll comment this file right here. And then I'll go to open the terminal, and then I run the command terraform state list in order to list the tracked resources from my Terraform state file. And so here we can see the app service plan and the resource group. What we want to do here is that we want to remove these tracked resources from the state file so that we can add them later when they will be using the new resource types. But later when we want to add them, we'll be using the command terraform import, which will need the resource ID of these tracked resources. So first I'll go to get these resources ID for the app service and for the app service plan. For that I'll be using the command echo Azure RM App Service plan.plan.id. This is the ID of my resource in Terraform, and then I'll output that in my console window. So I can get this property right here from the Azure portal, or I can also get it from the Terraform state file. And because I'll need this value, I'll send it or I'll save it into a variable called App Service Plan Resource ID. And then I'll do the same steps to get the App Service Plan Resource ID, then saving that ID into a variable called App Service Resource ID. And now I'll go to run the second step, which is to remove these deprecated resources from the state file. So to do that, I'll go to use the command terraform state rm to remove. And what I want to remove here are these two resources, which are deprecated. And here it tells me it did remove it, these two resources. So let's make sure that change was done successfully inside the state file. So I'll go to run the command terraform state list. And yeah, here now I can see that the state file, I have only the resource group. So the two resources are deleted. We can verify that from within the terraform.tf state file where we have the resources. And here we can see we have only one resource that is the only resource group. Now from here, the second step is to go to the deprecated resources, and then we go to comment out these resources. So I'll comment both the resources, and then I'll go to the new.tf file that contains the new resource types, which are for now commented, and I'll go to uncomment this file. And for the new template here, of course, we need to make sure that they use the same properties or the same configuration as the old resources. So those should describe exactly the same name of the app service plan and the same name of the app service and the resource group and so on. Otherwise, the import will fail. And then here we'll go to the third step, which would be to import the new resource type into the Terraform state file. So to do that, I'll be using the command Terraform import with the name of the new resource type, which is app service plan. Then we give it a name, and here we use the same name that we have used in this configuration file. And then we put the resource ID of that resource. So this is the variable that we have get earlier. And I'll do the same here for the Azure Linux Web App. So at this moment, Terraform is contacting my Azure provider, the Azure ARM, in order to get or to export the configuration of my resources and then try to map that configuration into inside the Terraform state file. And it will make sure that configuration respects the Terraform configuration from within my new.tf file. So I did here imported the first resource for the service plan and tells me here the import was successful, and these resources are now in the Terraform state. And now it's exporting the second resource and importing it into my Terraform state file. So from here, if I go to my Terraform state file and look for or list the resources that are now checked, we can see we have the new added resources, which are the service plan and the Azure App Service Linux. And we can verify that by going to the Terraform state file and seeing the number of resources. We should see the 3 resources, Azure Resource Group, and then the App Service Plan, and the first one here is the Linux Web App. And that's it. Now we have updated or upgraded our resource types to use the new resources instead of the deprecated resources. So from now on, if I run here the Terraform plan, and if everything was going well here, I should get a message saying that the configuration is the latest one that was applied to my cloud provider, because I have those resources. This described configuration is already inside the state file. But in reality, this might not be the case. So you can see here we have a new change that will be applied. And this is because it's not only Terraform who are changing, it's also the Azure provider that is changing. And Terraform will try always to catch up these changes. So for example, inside the app service, we can find here the site config. We have the configuration for the application stack, where we use the variable .NET version with 6.0, and inside for the old deprecated resource, that resource was inside this block site config, where we have the .NET framework version with v4.0. So those values changes from one version to the other. So we need to choose carefully the values for our configuration inside the new resources. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you.